Hello, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our second webinar in our Climate Summit programme, which is on sustainable transport for your business. I'm Dan Clayton, I'm the Sustainability Manager for Lincolnshire County Council. We've got three speakers and a question and answer session to go through today. And sustainable transport is a key area for the County Council to look at. We've investigated our carbon emissions for the whole of the economy in the Lincolnshire County Council area, and surface transport accounts for about 40% of total emissions within the county. So it's a really important area of carbon emissions. It's our largest source of carbon emissions within Lincolnshire. And then this sort of area is obviously being tackled by the national policy picture through things such as the phase out of the sale of petrol and diesel cars from 2030, but there are also lots of other kind of local initiatives that we can take, and we are taking as well. So it's an exciting time in that the new local transport plan version 5 for Lincolnshire is about to go out to consultation to the public in the next few months. And as part of that, there is an electric vehicle strategy for the county that's included in that as well, that WSP have just produced for the county council. So that will be part of that consultation. So there are opportunities coming out of that to lower emissions from transport around the county. So we've got three speakers today. I'll introduce them also. There's Chris Chapman from myenergi, who's going to talk about electric vehicle charging. Rob King from Zedify is going to talk about cargo bikes and last mile delivery. And Mark Dilts from GasRec is going to talk about bio-LNG and compressed natural gas and biomethane. So to start off, I will hand over to Chris Chapman to talk from myenergi, talk about electric vehicle charging. Over to you, Chris.
Super, thank you very much. So, hi everybody, I've got a bit of a presentation for you today, which runs through who we are as a company, what we do and how our products work, because we're a little bit different to the majority of the EV charging companies. We've set ourselves out right from the start to work with renewable energy sources. So if I can just share my screen for you all. And hopefully you can all see that. Is that all come up and ready for you? Perfect.
Yeah, see that, yeah.
Perfect. So, as we said, I'm Chris Chapman. I'm Sales Director for myenergi. We are based in North Lincolnshire. So we're a technology company as such, where we specialise in renewable energy solutions and renewable energy products to enable our customers to make the most of self-generation, be that solar or wind, and allow them to save money on their energy bills for home or businesses. So we started in a village called Binbrook. As you can see on screen, that was our complete manufacturing site. So we design all of our products ourselves from the ground up. We manufacture them as well, and full dispatch. So I always liken this to an old doctor's surgery, but that's where we started producing all of our products from for the first couple of years. It's only recently that we've moved. So we set up with our two co-founders, being Lee Sutton, who's the technical genius behind the products, and Jordan as co-founder, now our chief marketing officer. She's very much the face of the business. So with Lee's technical intelligence and Jordan's desire to make a change and force that change in front of everybody else, we've turned from September 2017 with Lee, Jordan and 4 members of R&D staff to where we're at today is September 21. We now employ over 300 members of staff, over two sites, with our own R&D, manufacturing, sales and admin all on site. So we're British-based design, no longer in Binbrook, but still based in North Lincolnshire. This is our new headquarters where I'm speaking from today. This is in Stallingborough, the new business park that's been set up. We had ideas of this. I think we started it about 2 years ago. We moved in July this year. and it's already too small for us. So we've grown, as I say, from four people to 300 people. And now we need to get even bigger. So this is the next level for us. This is plans at the moment. Hopefully within the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be able to build this. So our purpose-built headquarters, we're going to quadruple in size at least, so we can keep everything in-house. We're currently manufacturing from an old Wix warehouse based in Grimsby, but trying to bring all of that back on site like it used to be in that Binbrook area. So we started selling just in the heart of England, around Lincolnshire. Then we moved into to Northern Ireland, then Scotland, and now we operate in 29 countries worldwide, with subsidiaries in Germany, Ireland, Benelux, and most recently Australia. And we've sold 200,000 units so far across the world. So, as I say, the MyEnergy name was set up in July 2016, but the first products didn't actually come to market until 2017 in the form of our Eddy, which was designed around heating. And then we saw our first EV charger called Zappi in November 2017. Quickly followed that up with a couple of communication devices to allow internet access and app access to the devices. And then November 2018, we launched Zappi version 2, which unfortunately suffered a few delays, but eventually came to market in July 2019. So Zappi version 2 is what we sell today. That's essentially the product that's put us on the map. So we view ourselves as a technology company around renewable energy sources, but Zappi and our EV charging is definitely our halo product that's brought the MyEnergy name to the household. So this is an example really as to how the setup works and how our products work to give everybody energy independence within the home. So here's a very simple setup for you, starting from the grid on that left-hand side, going into the home and the property. So we work with solar or wind energy. So we encourage everybody to go down that renewable energy source and install solar panels to their home or business. So as an example here, the sun would shine nicely on the solar panels, creating energy towards that home or business to allow it to run. If the solar panels are creating more than the home or business is using, traditionally you would have what is called an export. So surplus energy going back out to the grid. That's something that we designed our products to ensure does not happen. So that's where you would install a Zappi EV car charger. What we'll be able to do is monitor what the home or business is utilizing of that solar or wind energy that you're creating, and if there is any export margin. Zappi will then be able to turn on its clever technology. It'll be able to see that instantly, and then it will be able to import that excess back and utilize it to be able to charge your vehicle accordingly. As you will see on the image there, that's an Extreme E vehicle. So that's we're heavily involved in Extreme E, which is a racing series of electric SUVs which go around to the most remote locations of the globe. We've recently been in the glaciers doing a project there to be able to install solar panels and EV charging to the locals, but highlighting the effects of climate change to the glaciers, just as a little side thing there. So essentially Zappi will be able to read your excess energy that you've created and charge your car accordingly. Obviously, after that, we still don't want any of the spare energy to be going back out to the grid. So we also have what I mentioned before as our Eddy unit. So Eddy has got exactly the same kind of concept as Zappi, but this time it'll be using that renewable energy source to be able to heat the hot water for your business or for your home. All of our products as well, we also ensure that we work with any third-party batteries. It's not a secret anymore that we are trying to create our own battery, but at the moment we work with all third-party batteries for home and business. So you can charge the battery using the renewable energy sources again, and then in case of a rainy day, when your solar panels aren't creating any energy, this is where your battery would be able to kick in to avoid pulling energy from the grid. We don't want that to happen. So the energy would be able to be transferred from the battery to be able to run that home or business. So all of our products work side by side to be able to allow full energy independence within the home or business. But we did touch on the fact that Zappi was our key product. It is. My history is very much through automotive. So I come from a background of 18 years automotive, going from a car salesman to working with manufacturers such as Nissan and MG, bringing their electric vehicles to market. And now within the fleet industry, for definite, electric cars are easily the way forward on a financial basis and a climate change basis. So on a financial side, benefit in kind is set at 1% on an electric vehicle versus petrol or diesel going anywhere from 16 to 32% benefit in kind. So the financial savings are there for a company car driver and for companies as well. For anything of low emission vehicle or zero emission vehicle, you'll be able to write off a lot of the investment in an electric car against your taxable profits, and also help with that sustainability side within the industry. One of the big key areas of concern for people around going for EV charging at home or business is around the grid, and can the grid compensate for all of that extra energy usage. So what we've built inside our products and Zappi is what we call dynamic load balancing. So the way this works is this is designed to replicate a home, but it's scalable to business as well. So if your home is based around, say, a 60 amp fuse, and that's what the DNO has approved and built a housing estate around that every home is going to use circa 60 amps, you would install an EV charge point, and we ask for a grid CT to be applied. That's so we can monitor what's going on in the home. At peak charge, you're going to be asking for that car to be charging at 32 amps. On a 60 amp fuse in a property, that doesn't leave particularly much available for anything else within the home. So what would happen if someone came home, they turned the kettle on, if they turned the washing machine on, the tumble dryer, all of a sudden you're asking that demand to be over and above the fuse capability. 66 amps would normally cause a problem, potentially blow a fuse. So in a lot of situations, people have been required to upgrade the supply to properties. But because of the technology that's involved in our EV charging, we can see that happening live. We can see through that grid CT that the demand has gone too high over and above the fuse or the settings or the DNO improvements. So we can instantly kick in with our technology and reduce the demand that's coming to the charger. So we can balance it back to the level that was set for the fuse board in the business or the home. As soon as the electricity usage in the property drops back down, we can then flick straight back up to the 32 amps. So there, when the kettle's been turned off, we can see the extra availability, and Zappi will instantly kick back in at 32 amps and be able to charge your car at full. We do all of that as a full monitoring system, so we can monitor the home or business through everything that you've got included. So this is what you will get as our home energy management system, which is viewable on an app or in your smartphone or tablet. So we can see that the live household loads, and this is minute by minute data. So if someone were to turn a kettle on, we'll be able to see an increase in the household load. We can see all of the imports and exports coming from the grid. We can see PV generation or wind generation and calculate all of that. Any battery, we'll be able to see import and export into the third-party battery. Eddy is the heating system. We can monitor and control all of that power going towards your hot water tank or underfloor heating, anything with a resistive load. Even some people have gone for swimming pools running off an Eddy. And then you've got your EV charging through Zappi, all completely customizable. If you wanted to change anything from who gets priority, whether it's your car or your heating or the battery, it's a very simple drag and drop system on our app to be able to control it. And then you can delve into as much as you want in terms of technical spec and data. So you can see literally everything that the home and the cars are using. In a business, you'll be able to see multiple EV charge points. You'll be able to see which charge point was used when, whether that car was charged via grid energy, or whether it was from your renewable energy source, being your wind or your solar, and how much of the fleet has been charged via green energy versus potentially dirty energy coming from the grid, what times they were used. You can set schedules to ensure that the fleet is only charged during evenings or cheaper rates or lower CO2 rates. You can overlay all of the data as well, so we can see that business generation when you're using your peak times within the business. So if you are going down the route of EV and even battery storage technology, you can see when to be charging your cars, and you can move them out of those peak times into off-peak times as well. So the key thing in terms of the sustainability and sustainable transport that I've seen over my 18 years in the motor trade and to now working with My Energy and EV charging is people's mindset changes from the normal internal combustion engine car to that of an electric vehicle. Electric vehicle charging is done predominantly at home or work. That's where you spend the majority of your time. In a recent study, it was revealed that 96% of charging is either home or workplace. But there's also a stigma attached to this. Home charging is you must charge at home. I can't have an electric car because I don't have off-street parking. There isn't enough off-street parking with chargers, etc. If we try and think about this to what you've got as a petrol car, you don't have a petrol pump on your streets or on your driveway either. The way that cars have developed, my electric car can do 320 miles on a full charge, and it will take approximately 25 minutes to recharge it up if I'm on a high-powered charger. The big thing that we need to do is high-powered chargers and banks of them to be able to ensure that people can top up on a daily quick basis, and destination charging, supermarkets, to be able to, when you pull up, you've got 20-30 minutes worth of just plugging in to top back up what you've used to get there. Home charging is the ideal, but it's not the absolute essential. Workplace charging is potentially the way forward. If, as businesses, people are parked up on a daily basis from the hours of 9 to 5, and your car can be on charge there, it's everyone as a workplace and as an employer who can aid the adoption of electric cars. It's beneficial for you as a company, it's beneficial for the employer, it's beneficial for the environment as well. So, and using our technology, you'll be able to implement that and ensure it is not going to cause any issues on the business infrastructure or even the charging, the load balance and setup of the land. So hopefully that's quite a lot that I've gone through as us as a company and what we do, etc. Hopefully that's enough to give an overview as to what we do and essentially why we do it as well. And I'm sure there'll be a load of questions. I guess it's later on, Dan, is it? Or are we opening questions now?
No, we're going to do the question answer session at the end after all three presentations, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks very much for that, Chris. That was great. Very interesting, informative. We'll move on now to Rob King from Zedify, talk about the cargo bikes and the last mile delivery. So over to you, Rob.
Super, thanks. Can you all see me, hear me, see my screen?
Yeah, I can see that, yes.
Let me put that on full screen mode, that'll be easier. Cool, well, thanks for the welcome, Dan, that's really kind and really interesting to hear what you've been talking about, Chris. I'm, I guess, a little bit at the other end of the spectrum, talking about zero emission deliveries in cities. I guess maybe a quick thing at the start, but if any of you have ever been a delivery driver in a city or had a go at delivering in cities, you'll know it's a complete nightmare. And Zedify is all about doing deliveries in cities better. And by that, I mean better for our customers in terms of doing the deliveries the way they want. And that's been changing quite a lot, I think, over the last few years, but also very much focused on doing deliveries better for the city in terms of reducing emissions, reducing congestion, and making our cities better, nicer places to be. That's essentially what drives me and all of our team with that mission. So just focusing on what the actual problem really is. Well, essentially, we've got a traditional model that's pretty broken. We've got, if you imagine like a DHL or a DPD with their hubs maybe 70 miles outside of a city, all those parcels get put onto big trucks or vans. And those vans and trucks tend to be really well optimized for zooming up and down the motorway and doing the trunking element. And as soon as they hit the city, particularly a modern city, they find that they are getting stuck in traffic, causing congestion, as well as getting stuck in the congestion, really struggling with finding places to park, and suddenly find that they're in the wrong vehicle for the job. They're in vehicles that are a generalist, essentially, that may be really good for trunking, but often not very good for a modern city. And at the other end of the scale, you've also got lots of the kind of Deliveroos and Wheezys and Gettys, all those kind of on-demand delivery operators. And all of those deliveries are going around a city in a point-to-point way. There's no consolidation going on there, and they're really, really, really inefficient. Last mile deliveries in city can be up to 50% of the total cost of delivery. And we also know that this is growing massively in terms of online retail. And the number of delivery vehicles reckons it can be a 36% increase in those delivery vehicles. So rather than just thinking about remoding those vehicles to try and solve some of the problems in cities, we really need to think about different systems as well. And just to really ram home the point, I suppose, of all that inefficiencies in cities, what does it mean? It essentially means we have got this public health emergency. Transport, I think this was mentioned earlier on the call, but transport is 27% of the total greenhouse gas emissions, and it's the one sector which really isn't coming down at all. We're not making big inroads into making a difference there. And probably more importantly, toxic air is estimated to be causing 40,000 UK deaths a year at a cost to the economy of £20 billion. So it's definitely something we need to do something about. And local authorities are certainly waking up to this. And their sort of take on it, I suppose, is to try and solve this problem by making it harder and harder for those delivery companies. So it's becoming more and more difficult for them through creating ultra low emission zones, restricting access, all of that sort of stuff. And how that can end up trickling down to the customer ends up often being a poor customer experience, because the delivery companies are getting more and more frustrated, and they turn up at doorsteps having been sat in the traffic jam for the last couple of hours, and they often give a really poor doorstep experience. And the other thing is that the pressures on those delivery companies often mean that they are forced to resort to fairly unethical employment practices, gig economy work, and that sort of thing as well. And finally, I think it's worth pointing out, so as a result of all that, you know, from a consumer point of view, there's this huge demand for more sustainable and more ethical deliveries. And the research that we've been looking at, 75% of people favor brands that are making their deliveries more sustainable. And the other element of that, it's not just about sustainability, is also ethics, particularly around sort of fashion retail. But ethics being really, really important as well. So making sure that delivery people are treated well as well, right the way down through the chain. So that's all the problems and all the misery. The good news is that Zedify, my company, is helping to solve many of those issues. And we've got some really delighted customers. We give a really fantastic doorstep experience by employing real living wage riders, recently rated 100% 45 stars. And we've been winning lots of awards recently that really testament to that. We won Urban Delivery Operator of the Year last year, which was really exciting, beat DPD for that. And we're also, really importantly, in terms of carbon emissions, we are managing the expectations of our consumers in terms of those zero emission deliveries. Our cargo bikes are all very low impact and produce no CO2 emissions or toxic emissions as well. And our model is super efficient. So we're able to offer really great prices to our customers as well. So how do we do it? So our model is around utilizing micro hubs, where we position them on the edge of an urban environment or even inside a city, and they act as like a gateway for deliveries coming into and out of the city. So I mentioned earlier that idea of a van or a truck being really good at going up and down the motorway and doing that bit of it. This is around having consolidation points on the edge of urban environments, so you can decouple the trunking part of it with the very specific stuff that happens in a city. And when those parcels get into the consolidation hub, we remode those to electric cargo bikes. These tend to be really big ones. I'll show you some pictures in a minute. About half the size of a small van. They get put onto routes, consolidated with other deliveries going to the same area. So it makes it really, really super efficient. And then the last mile is done in that way. And because those consolidation hubs, those micro hubs, are really close to our consumers, we can be much more flexible with those deliveries as well. We can hit the narrow time windows that consumers are beginning to demand. Typically, those cargo bikes will go out and do maybe 2, 3, or 4 routes in a day, rather than your typical next day route where you'll just be going there doing 1 route in a day. And then we tie all that together with some really good technology, very, very specific to cargo bikes and what we're doing around optimizing routes and making sure those deliveries are done in the most efficient way. And we're also working on a model. We're doing some really good modeling for larger cities. So our model was based around operating in relatively small cities, like Cambridge and Lincoln, for example, where one hub can serve a whole city, roughly a 3-mile radius. And now we're looking at our model for how we can deliver the same service in a much larger place. And really what it requires is having multiple hubs, where each of those hubs in a city looks after a specific area, typically around a 3-mile radius. And those hubs get connected with the other hubs and with the other areas via a trunking vehicle that goes around, so that you can really focus all of the collections and deliveries within an area, utilizing really fantastic, really well optimized vehicles. So you're never sort of jumping in a van, having to do a really long 9-mile route across the whole city. You can consolidate those items into those small areas. And that's got really exciting potential for customers as well, because the price means, through consolidation, means that the price can be much, much lower as well. So yes, just in terms of going back on the delivery service that we created, it's a very ethical service that we're doing. It's smarter in terms of the innovation through powering it by really good technology. And it's also really fantastic for cities in terms of low impact vehicles, quieter streets, more livability, those kind of really important factors that consumers are really keen on hearing about. And here's a typical micro hub. This one's in Cambridge. Typically parcels will come in. They might come in from, we work closely with FedEx, for example, but they will come in with local veg boxes, with magazines that need to be delivered, anything that needs delivering around the city. Stuff gets consolidated on micro hubs and then put onto large cargo bikes to go and do those delivery rounds. I say it's all cargo bikes. We also do have some electric vans that we use, and we also use some smaller 2-wheel cargo bikes as well, where the range may be a little bit faster, or the loads that we're carrying tend to be a bit smaller. And here's another example. Here's one of ours in Brighton, going around and doing deliveries against the backdrop of a larger van. So yeah, these vehicles are really great in that they are low impact. They don't have issues with the restricted access. They don't have issues with parking. And for a certain volume of freight, they're really great. I'm not saying they are the solution to everything, but utilized alongside micro hubs and with some really good technology, they can be really, really, really great at helping to make deliveries in cities more efficient. And the services that we put out for local and national businesses. So we do what we call only mile local delivery. So this might be working with your local butcher or baker or local authority to move deliveries that start within the city and finish within the city. So all sort of local deliveries, might be medical stuff with that, with the hospital, as I said, council stuff as well, libraries, that kind of thing. The majority of what we do, though, is now last mile final delivery. So this will be stuff that's coming in from outside the city, maybe from a national retailer, for example. We'll trunk those items into our hubs where they get offloaded and put onto those cargo bikes for delivery rounds. And we also do the same in reverse as well. So we do collections for customers that are going outside the city on an onward journey. We'll go and do those collections and bring them back to the hub before they go and get collected, for example, by a big truck. And as I said, we work closely with FedEx for doing some big volume stuff, and also a few other sort of retailers, small local businesses, local authorities. Valpak's quite an interesting one. It's a bit like that reverse logistics I was talking about. So this is a company that does battery recycling, household battery recycling. You think of your sort of AA batteries that you might put into Sainsbury's, or maybe you've got a box in your business. And Valpak used to send a massive truck into each of their cities on a weekly basis to go and pick up maybe 10 items from 10 shops. So really, really inefficient use of a big resource, and then go back to Birmingham or wherever their central hub was and process all the stuff. Whereas now we can do all of those small collections from those businesses. We bring them back to our hubs, we put them in a massive battery bank, and then once every 3 months, a big truck turns up to pick up like tons and tons of batteries. So it's really good for their customers because they get a much more responsive service, and it's really great for them that they're not driving a big truck all around the country as often as they had to before. We're in 9 UK cities at the moment. We've got 10 hubs and have the largest fleet of electric cargo bikes in the country at the moment. I think that's probably going to be changing quite soon over the next year or two, because I think this is definitely going to be exploding. I'm pretty sure Amazon are going to be getting involved in this, utilizing micro hubs and cargo bikes, and it's definitely going to become big, even in Lincoln, I think, which would be great. And then just a word on impact. I think I mentioned this before, but we do have a very measurable impact on the health of cities and their communities and what we do there in terms of reducing carbon emissions. It's worth pointing out that an electric cargo bike can be more than 90% less CO2 over the whole life cycle of it compared to even an electric van. So where you can use cargo bikes, and particularly larger ones, then they can be really, really effective at that. Obviously, they're great for local air pollution, and for us, we very much support local businesses with services that improve their delivery options, and also support local employment. We don't do any gig economy employment. We do all real living wage employees. And we've got some big ambitions to grow. So we're currently, as I said, only active in 9 cities. We want to be active in 45 UK cities over the next 4 years. We're currently removing around 600,000 van journeys a year. We want to grow that, and obviously the team as well, and have some really good sizable impact on carbon emissions at the same time. So I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I didn't want to talk for too long. I thought I'd leave lots of space for questions. This last slide was really just thinking about what some of the barriers are, because on the face of it, it seems like a complete no-brainer, and you go, wow, this is great. Let's make sure we get cargo bikes into cities. The reality is there's quite a few challenges in that. And this was really just sort of highlighting maybe some of those challenges, both for us, for the local authority, and possibly even for the businesses themselves. But the vehicles themselves are pretty new and unique, and we often find ourselves being the guinea pigs for that. So that's pretty tough. And we're competing with gig economy competitors. So we employ all our riders on a living wage, so that makes quite a big difference. And also, people think cargo bikes are really cheap. They're actually pretty pricey themselves, and then you also have to store them inside. It's not like a van where you can just store it outside, so you end up having some quite high costs of having those micro hubs that you want to have relatively central in cities. And then finally, I think there's just a bit of a market failure, which I talk about as the Amazon Prime effect for cities, where, for example, probably like most of us, we sign up to Amazon Prime for a relatively small amount each month. And at that point, we get free deliveries, and we can have free deliveries, and we can always choose that kind of super fast, urgent delivery where you can get it within a few hours. When the reality is most of the time you don't actually need it for a few days, perhaps, or next day is absolutely fine, but you go, well, I've already paid my monthly salary, I'll do it for free. And those are the sort of journeys that are making it really, really inefficient in cities, and helping to really cause a lot of the congestion. So yeah, I just had a couple of ideas about, you know, what you can do as members of the public, as local authorities, whoever's listening, I suppose. But you know, highlight issues around the existing model. It is an old model that does need disrupting. There will come a time, I think quite soon, if not already, but you should soon start to be able to choose products based on how they do their deliveries, and getting options at checkout. So if you do get that, make sure you tick the sustainable options, and supporting local authority with their clean air zone ambitions, because I think this has been one of the big barriers as local authorities realize they need to sort out this market failure and do something about emissions in cities. They're wanting to push clean air zones and make, you know, wave the stick around, I suppose, to delivery companies, but they're coming up with a lot of resistance. A lot of people will go, well, I want to be able to drive my car around the city or do whatever it is I want. That can be quite challenging. So supporting some of their needs, if it means that the city actually becomes a more vibrant place because it's got cleaner air and there's less impact vehicles going around, I think we can all agree that that's generally a good thing. So supporting the local authority in that way is good. And that was it. That was my talk. Apologies, I look very dark. I've realized I've got a big light in the background. But thanks very much for allowing me to come and speak to you.
Thanks very much, Rob, for your presentation. I was just going to say that as part of our Community Renewal Fund bid that Lincolnshire County Council has submitted to the government, we've got a project in there for a kind of a last mile delivery project. We're still waiting for the Community Renewal Fund to get back to us, and that it's got through the first phase, and we're hopeful that we'll get funding to take that project forward. So hopefully we'll be able to see these types of Zedify bikes around Lincoln in the not too distant future.
That'd be great. I'm trying to there we go. Stop share. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Finally got it. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that. Right. So now we move on to Mark, who's going to talk to us about the compressed natural gas and from biosources. So I'll hand over to you, Mark.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll just get my presentation on screen. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Gilks. I work for Gasrec as one of their key account directors for the north of the UK. So I'm great privilege to sort of talk to you today in regards to natural gas and everything within the marketplace. So yeah, there we go. So what we do as a business, Gasrec are a company that was formed back in 2013. The following slide will sort of explain where we sort of come from. But what we sort of do is we identify and secure land and look to build bio-LNG and bio-CNG refueling stations. So we're sort of actively in the marketplace looking to develop and grow an open access network, primarily for large-scale HGVs that are looking to move from diesel over to alternative fuels such as biomethane. With these stations, we operate, maintain, and sort of enhance these sort of stations as we sort of move as the market sort of moves sort of forward with that. So, as you say, we sort of build them, we own them, we operate them, and we sort of maintain them. And as the market enhances, we enhance our stations with that as well. We source and transport all our natural gas and biomethane to our stations. That comes from the Isle of Grain down in Kent, and we use natural gas powered vehicles to transport that to our customer sites that are running back to base solutions, similar to when you store diesel on large distribution hubs, to actually our open access network as well. So not only are we sort of supporting a market here in regards to moving to alternative fuels, we are practicing what we sort of preach as well. We also support our customers' requirements as well in regards to supporting them in regards to trials, running gas vehicles, training, any sort of reporting basis that they're after. So we sort of look at it from a sort of full holistic approach there. In terms of our history, we were formed back in 2003. The name Gasrec came from sort of gas recovery. So back in 2008, we developed a liquefied biomethane plant. So what we were doing is basically taking anaerobic digesting gas and sort of converting that into liquefied biomethane, which was supplying the market with about sort of up to 5,000 tons per annum of fuel. What that was being used for was obviously the development of alternative fueled vehicles within the market sector. So once that plant was up and running in around sort of 2013, the sort of dual fuel market in the UK kicked off, which was the heavy goods industry running on diesel and a gas blend. So at that point in time, we sort of developed our first back to base refueling stations, and the sort of market started to grow from there. In conjunction with that, we opened our largest, and probably still the European's largest LNG, CNG refueling station in Crick in Daventry, back in 2013. That can service up to 700 vehicles a day in regards to refueling. Probably sits at around 350 to 400 a day that are refueling from that station at this point in time. So as the sort of market started to develop, obviously around the sort of dual fuel vehicles, around 2017, the introduction of sort of the OEM vehicles came to market from Iveco, Scania and Volvo. So the market started to see quite a sort of impact into people looking at alternative fuels and manufactured vehicles as well behind that. Another key milestone for ourselves is, as of 2020, 100% of our bio-LNG and CNG sold into the marketplace was classed as biomethane. So every customer that's running gas vehicles was actually getting a biomethane source from Gasrec. In terms of where we are today, we've got 9 sort of bio-LNG stations in operation, 2 biomethane CNG stations in operation, sorry. We've got 3 open access sites in development for 22, and we've got minimum of 5 stations currently in build. Because obviously with this, it's the chicken and egg scenario. What comes first, the vehicles or the stations? So we're working very closely with our key customers, the OEMs, and anybody within the industry in regards to developing where we can sort of build these type of solutions. In terms of environmental benefits, it mainly comes into 3 elements here. The main one is obviously by running natural gas, moving straight from diesel to natural gas, you see around a 10 to 20% lower sort of carbon emission basis. By moving to biomethane, that's where the sort of main sort of strength of the argument comes into play, that you can get up to 90% CO2 reduction. So for the heavy haulage industry across the UK that are powering vehicles at 44 ton up and down the country, this is really seen as a holy grail approach in regards to them meeting their sustainability and CSR targets. With that as well, obviously gas has lower emissions of pollutants such as nitrous oxides and other particulate matter. So there is air quality benefits as well, which is obviously quite prevalent in the market that we're sort of currently working at this point in time. And also the fact that as these are gas engines, they run at about 50% quieter than diesel engines. So again, producing less noise on the road, around the depot, but also meaning that nighttime deliveries in sort of city centre, town centres can take place in the evening because they sort of fall under the sort of decibel requirements of a sort of nighttime delivery. In terms of the sort of 2 fuels, I've obviously mentioned CNG and LNG, compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas. They are basically the same product. It's the same product that we have at home that comes out of our cooker hobs in the evening when we sort of turn them on to start our cooking. One is compressed, so that's basically its gaseous form, and one is liquefied LNG, which means you basically liquefy the product down to minus 130, 140 degrees. The benefit of either vehicle really sort of depends on the operation that the haulier or the operator is sort of running at this time. Range wise, you can see a CNG vehicle gets between 350 and 400 kilometers range. LNG goes up to 650 to 1600. That's purely the fact that you're basically getting more fuel into the vehicle, because the LNG tractor unit is storing gas at minus 130. It means what's happening is it's taking that liquefied gas, converting it into a gaseous fuel, and that's what's running in the engine. So you're physically storing more gas on the vehicle that allows you to get the larger range. Both fuels offer typically between a 30 to 40% fuel saving. They've both got biomethane. As I mentioned before about the compression and liquefaction, one's as a gas, one's as liquid. They sort of run across multiple vehicle types, being the 4x2 and the 6x2 tractor units that we see on the marketplace. And obviously, in terms of the manufacturers in the marketplace, on the CNG side, you've got Scania and Iveco. On the LNG, you've got Scania, Iveco, and Volvo. So again, just reiterate there, obviously you get benefits in terms of longer range. So if you're looking to run these vehicles up and down the country on sort of the major motorways, then probably LNG is the fuel for you. Again, biomethane is available for both of those options, and they are both significantly cheaper than diesel, but also offer you a huge CO2 benefit as well. In terms of how we sort of develop the marketplace, we've got what we sort of call an LNG LCNG skid, which is the sort of top left picture on the right hand side with the Gregory truck behind it. We use that to sort of develop a market or a localized area or a customer that's looking to run a small number of vehicles. The picture on the bottom left is it's more of our sort of LNG sort of compact units. That's more for customers that are looking at 50 to 60 trucks on site. They're looking for a large scale back to base refueling operation. Top right is obviously our flagship site down at Daventry and Crick. So you can see there multiple tanks, multiple dispensers, hauliers up and down the country that are sort of using that particular site, and also a base in the area using that as their refueling location for their vehicles. And we do actually do also sort of CNG stations as well. So you can see there that we've got a station there with Ocado, and you may have seen recently in the press that Ocado and Gaswick have signed up to put a new station into one of their facilities in 2022. So what we're looking to do here is obviously develop a network. Everything in green on there is currently where we are at this point in time, which is classed as open access. Yellow is obviously in development, so looking around Lutterworth, East Midlands and Avonmouth for next year. And the sort of blue dots is obviously where we want to get to in regards to the UK. And obviously the red dot is the Grantham sort of Lincolnshire area sort of thing. So we're sort of very much keen on developing these open access stations that allow a number of users to actually have ability to refuel those vehicles that can get from one part of the country to the other. So over the next sort of 12, 18 months, you'll see a number of stations start to appear, hopefully at sort of key locations that allow anybody who are looking to run heavy goods vehicles, the ability to run those vehicles across up and down the sort of network across the UK. In terms of biomethane, bio-LNG, it's basically renewable gas that is sourced from waste material and is certified by the Department for Transport. The way in which that works is it's done through a mass balance process. So we sort of purchase gas and then inject that into the UK gas grid, which actually displaces the volume of LNG and CNG that we've sold. It's interchangeable, which is a key thing behind it. So you've not got to adapt the vehicles, the pumps, the equipment on site. Basically, with it being a mass balance product, you can basically fill it into the storage tanks that are there, and then allows the user to operate gas vehicles and sort of gives them the CO2 benefits behind it. As mentioned previously as well, though, the emissions piece is the key behind that, is that by sort of transitioning across to bio-LNG, bio-CNG, you can see around about a 90% saving, again, depending on the sort of type of biomethane sourced. Again, this sort of graph on the following page really just sort of shows you the sort of savings behind that. You can see it from a well-to-wheel perspective in grams of CO2 from where diesel is, transitioning across to LNG and compressed natural gas, and obviously where you sort of fall in regards to the sort of biomethane side of things on bio-CNG and LNG. It shows such a huge step change there in the marketplace in regards to sort of moving from a diesel-based product to a gaseous fuel. And again, going back to the point sort of mentioned before, this is all about sort of becoming more sustainable within this marketplace, and obviously biomethane gives users the sort of tools to do that. Probably a key project that we sort of worked on towards the back end of last year and this year was with Arla, and they've sort of taken bio-LNG from slurry. So what they did, they ran an LNG trial or biomethane trial for 3 months with 2 trucks. Covered about 90,000 kilometers within that sort of 3 to 4 month period. They worked out that over that short-term period, they saved about 80 tons of CO2, which is an equivalent to 23 car journeys around the world. So you can see it's quite substantial when you start to move from diesel to alternative fuels such as biomethane. How Arla did this, they sort of worked out that they were going to use cow manure, because obviously they're sort of going to sites to take milk and then sort of take them off to their main production site. So they sort of used the cow manure from about 500 cows. That actually created around 27,000 litres of biomethane that was then sent to an anaerobic digester plant. That was then turned into biomethane, cleaned up and put into the gas grid. And obviously then through the RTFO scheme, the Renewable Transport Fuels Obligation Scheme, through the mass balance basis, that gas being fed into the grid was the same volume that they took from the pump, and we could show a full sort of life cycle behind that. So in terms of the sort of Arla project, it was taking a waste material from the cows that they could then show that they're running that fuel within their vehicles, and that there's a case study and a video from the BBC on our website that I'm more than happy to share with anybody who's interested in regards to that particular project. So you can start to show that there's a full life cycle opportunity here from a well-to-wheel basis of using biomethane from animal waste in regards to powering vehicles, which I think is a sort of great sort of story and story to sell, a great story to show, and also to sort of be sort of successful about as well. In terms of obviously on-site refueling solutions, this is the sort of skid system that I mentioned before. It's a pump station, so we deliver LNG into the white container on the far right of the photo, and then basically what that works to is that then provides gas into the vehicle truck that you sort of see on the picture. It's ideal for 20 to 30 vehicles, so a medium to small operation there. The beauty of these solutions is they don't require planning because they are temporary solutions. What we look to do is we look to use these on site to seed customer demand, and also then look to build the larger stations in the area. And then once those stations are in place, we can lift and move these to another location on site. Space requirement is around about 2 to 3 trailer bays. We're not looking to take up a huge amount of somebody's site if they're keen to go back to base on site. We can sort of look to sort of tee it into a nice location on the customer's facility, and obviously that then provides them with the refueling experience that they sort of need to move vehicles over to gas. A larger type of solution, as you see there, is a picture from Reed Bordall. That installation was installed back in January this year. Suitable for over 35 vehicles. So again, 35 to probably 75 to 100 vehicles that can refuel from this type of operation. It's a 2 dispenser type of system. Again, it's a pump solution. So we're sort of pumping LNG from the vertical tank within, on the actual photo itself, into the vehicles that require temperatures and pressures from Volvo, Iveco or Scania, depending what sort of fleet vehicles you're looking to run. Again, it's more it sort of takes up a little bit more space on site, but again, it's sort of quite mobile in regards to the way in which it's sort of built on site. Again, sort of taking up about three trailer bays on a customer site. So we're not looking to take over 8 acres and anything, and behind it sort of thing is we can sort of pinpoint these onto a key customer site in regards to where they fill it, whether they're close to diesel tanks, whether they want it further away from the building itself. Again, it's more of a permanent solution than what you saw in the previous slide. So there will be planning applications that will need to be undertaken, but again, with that, Gasrec can undertake that option for anybody behind it. We sort of look at it as a turnkey approach, working very much in partnership with obviously the customer, the vehicle provider, and obviously ourselves as the fuel provider as well, sort of thing. So those are options behind it. And as I mentioned before, the holy grail behind that is obviously the open access stations within a region that are close to motorways or close to large distribution parks that anybody can use. They're the sort of key, they're our sort of key strategic aim in regards to developing a marketplace is building those larger type of stations that you can use for refuse collection vehicles, buses, and obviously heavy goods vehicles as well. What also is sort of quite pertinent to sort of talk about as well is also there is government support for gaseous HGV vehicles. Obviously, people are aware that there is road duty attached to diesel. There is road duty attached to compressed natural gas, biomethane, LNG, whichever fuel you're looking to use. That's actually been fixed until 2032. So there are a number of life cycles for vehicles here that people can engage with to sort of run gas vehicles to see how they work on their sort of fleet operation. The figures on the left-hand side are sort of showcasing more sort of indicative figures for a truck that's running, say, 160,000 kilometers a year, how much diesel they would use, but then also working out how much gas they would use in terms of kilograms for LNG or kilograms for CNG. So again, depending on the vehicle size and operation, will then obviously depend upon the overall fuel usage that we use behind that. But again, it was sort of quite prevalent to show the annual cost of duty for diesel being around about £29,000 in this particular model. For gas, you're looking between £9,000 and £11,000. So that gives the end user a duty saving there straight away between £17,000 and £20,000. Obviously, the gas vehicles do charge a premium to that, but obviously we sort of tend to see, depending on the mileage, a decent sort of payback for the end user that is looking to move to gas over the period of the sort of life cycle of that fleet. So again, as I mentioned there before, fuel duty is set until 2032. You see about £17,000 to £20,000 fuel saving. And then the overall sort of fuel saving that you'll sort of see by running a gaseous vehicle compared to a diesel truck is probably around about £25,000, which equates to a 68 to 80% differential sort of thing. So obviously, so that 68 to 80% differential comes from the fuel duty. Obviously the sort of differential between that and the £25,000 that's mentioned there comes from the fact that sort of gas costs are cheaper than diesel. So over the lifetime cycle of the vehicle, you'll see a commercial saving, but obviously more importantly, you see a huge benefit on the CO2 piece that actually supports CSR target strategies. So anyone that is looking to become more greener and cleaner, gas is certainly a more viable option for people in the marketplace, especially now that companies like ourselves are building stations and there are vehicles in the marketplace and the likes of Volvo, Iveco and Scania. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mark. You caught me on the hop there.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Apologies.
That's okay. Right, so we've had some questions come through for the panel on the Q&A system, and if anybody listening has got any additional questions, then if you can put them either in the chat or the Q&A box. I'll go through them first. So first one is for you, Rob, for Zenify. Rebecca asks, you mentioned FedEx. Do you have partnerships with the big delivery firms, or do you require end users to request Zenify last mile delivery?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, our partnership is essentially a subcontracting relationship, at least with FedEx and some of the other delivery, big next day delivery partners. So there's no real choice from an individual. They aren't just choose, if they choose FedEx. I mean, it's a bit of a problem in the sector as a whole. If you go onto a website and choose to buy your garments from ASOS, for example, then you're at the whim of ASOS choosing whatever delivery partner they're going to use. You don't have a choice in which who's going to deliver right at the end, unfortunately. I think the only thing is looking like it is going to change is some options on checkout for a lot of the retail companies, where they will start offering zero emission last mile deliveries on there. So if you get to that point, then there will be definitely us actually doing it, and we'll be working directly with ASOS. We have a slightly strange relationship in that we work with FedEx, but we also compete with them on some stuff as well.
Okay. Do you think that, because obviously Amazon are the big players in this, do you think that they will be, introducing that kind of system?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, we do know that Amazon are getting involved in this, and from our perspective, I think it's really positive in that it will lift everyone up, because Amazon is always at the forefront of this stuff, and technology especially, and they've done a lot, I think, just to move the expectations of consumers. And I think for everyone else, it's about a little bit of catching up, and we're certainly working and talking with Amazon and advising them on what they can do to make their operation better. Clearly, there will always be people that don't want to use Amazon, whether it's buying stuff or Amazon Logistics, which is a very big logistics company as a subsidiary of Amazon, and they're not just doing deliveries for Amazon, they're also starting to do deliveries for other business where their goods don't go through the Amazon platform, which is a really interesting sort of take on that. But yeah, I mean, certainly it's going to be big from all the big logistics players. A lot of them are going to get left behind because they don't have the hubs in the right places. So for them to invest in those hubs, it's a huge investment. And I think a lot of them just won't do that. And it will be a while before they go, oh, actually, yeah, this is now the norm. And this is what we should be doing.
Okay, thanks for that, Rob. Yeah, so there's another question. I think it's for you, Mark. Is gas fueling for HGVs part of the government's 10-point plan, and is this seen as the best option for decarbonising road haulage? I suppose it's a kind of a transitional technology, isn't it, before future solutions for HGVs are introduced.
Absolutely. I think from our point of view, gas is here and now, isn't it? It's a viable option from the biomethane point of view. You see a number of vehicles and OEMs providing into the marketplace from a compressed natural gas point of view to a liquefied natural gas sort of point of view. There's no silver bullet, unfortunately. I think what you're going to find is as the sector develops, there's going to be a place for electric and a place for gas and a place for hydrogen, whatever is going to be coming after that sort of thing. So it certainly is a transitional fuel. I'm sort of speaking to people in the industry, they reckon that it could be here for sort of 25, 30 years in terms of where it is. But obviously, as you mentioned before there, Dan, rightly, it's a here and now fuel. So I think there can be right place, right time, right application for it. But as people looking to sort of decarbonise the sector and become more sustainable, gas is certainly a prevalent option out there. And the number of people that are looking at options behind it only shows that it's going to go from strength to strength over the coming years.
Okay, thanks for that. There's one for you again, Rob. Somebody's saying they love the microhubs concept, and that it's really important for creating a circular economy at the city scale. I kind of wondered, what sort of size of site are you looking for a microhub? How micro is the microhub?
I guess our smallest ones are around 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. So they're pretty small. Essentially they need to be able to store 8 to 10 cargo bikes overnight, and then during the day use that space as a sort of cross-docking space where parcels can come in, they can get sorted and consolidated and go out again. That's the sort of minimum fundamentals, and then space for office and workshop and stuff. But going back to that question on the circular economy, I think it's a really important point, because there's so much opportunity in circular economy, but requires so many tiny little collections. And a good example of this is coffee grounds in small cafes, where at the moment you can't recycle it easily. Often the small business won't have a green bin because it's too small, but there's actually value in those used coffee grounds. Nationally, there's companies making fire bricks from it, there's companies making oil from it, there's company using it as a substrate to grow mushrooms on it, but they don't have a efficient way of getting those collections back. If they put a van on it, they know the cost is going to be really high. So I think there's a real opportunity here to suddenly open up more opportunities around circular economy stuff, utilizing these vehicles, because it's about doing stuff in the micro and doing that really efficiently in the micro.
Great, thanks for that. Chris, I had a question for you around the kind of rural nature of EV charging, and what's the plan for rural sites? Is availability of the electricity network going to be a big issue when you kind of move out into kind of on the East Lindsey sort of area of Lincolnshire? Are we going to have the capacity there to install the high powered charging points that are going to be required?
Potentially. You can't get away from that. It has to be thought about on a larger scale. We're working with plenty of people at the moment who are working on solar sites. So GridServe, for example, they've just done launched probably 2 or 3 solar sites where solar charging. And that's where we're based. We're more of an AC charging side, so domestic and workplace, but you will need DC chargers are definitely the way forward. Around the Lincolnshire area, Tesla, for example, we don't have, apart from Grantham, we don't have much north of Grantham for like Tesla superchargers, etc. So you are right; it will be down to the supply. But if we can team that in with some renewable ideas, wind generation or solar, that's the way forward. So we can go with that rather than pure increasing capacity of what we've already got.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and I think the EV strategy document that is about to be produced kind of goes through some of those options along the kind of main road network of the county. So that'll be interesting for when it's published. I wondered as well, Chris, kind of focusing on the business side of things, what's the kind of split between domestic and workplace level of work that you do? Is it mainly home charging points, or are you kind of seeing more and more workplaces putting these kind of things in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we pretty much based our business and design Zappi around home domestic, but there's more and more of a call for light commercial as such. So businesses and charging at businesses. I did see a question pop up. I don't know where it's gone, around charging employees, etc. for charging at work. Yeah. We're looking at that option. We're developing our product to be able to do like a touch point with RFID for staff, or be able to charge them accordingly, whether that be tap and pay, etc. I would say that we are probably around about 85% domestic now, with 15% going into commercial. We'll be able to probably switch that by the end of the year when we've adapted the product a little bit more to cater for that light commercial a little bit better. And I would say you probably end up going to be more of the 60-40 split around domestic to business.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. And I used to work for another local authority, and their charging system had a system where employees could be charged one rate, kind of like a at cost of electricity rate, and then if anybody came up, a member of the public who wanted to use one of the charging points, they could be charged a more commercial rates. I think they're the sort of systems that we're going to see more frequently, and it's things like County Hall in Lincoln, the car park there is kind of open to the public at a weekend. So we could have charging points in there that kind of do that system as well, where they charge one rate at one time and one rate at another, depending on who the most likely users are.
Completely, and we've worked with golf clubs, for example, of where if you're a member at the golf club, you can use your card to be able to get a cheaper rate or even free for your charging as part of it. Whereas if you are a non-member and you pull up, you pay per kilowatt hour that you use as the charging at whatever rate the golf club decide to set. So there's multiple different ways you can do it, and even as a fleet. So there's a couple of companies within the marketplace who can actually use a charging card, but it charges it directly back to the company's energy bill. So you can be a fleet driver who charges up at some rapid charges on your journey, tap and pay with a card that just adds on to the electricity bill of the company. So there's multiple different avenues that people are looking at and going through. We're just one of them.
No, that's excellent. Thanks for that. A question from Mark. The county council have been looking at anaerobic digestion as part of their verge harvesting management, and it's also been looked at for food waste collection as well. Mm-hmm. Would those type of systems be compatible with your kind of refueling stations?
I think, again, if you look at it from a sort of mass balance perspective, if you put that into an AED plant, there's obviously gas cleanup facilities behind it, which can then obviously then provide you with the gas required for the dispenser in the vehicle. Or if that just gets injected into the grid, then obviously we can then run things through the sort of mass balance process, similar to what we did with Arlrix, that sort of thing anyway. So yeah, I would certainly say that there are options there that we would be keen to explore with the council, Dan.
Okay, no, that's great. And kind of on a related one, there's a question from Anne who says, I believe that some biomethane is derived from crops grown for the purpose. She's working on a land use project, and her understanding is that there's tension between this and growing and using the land for growing food. So is some of the material that's going into the biomethane and biogas, is that coming from kind of crops that are being grown specifically to generate the gas?
My understanding is from a Gasric viewpoint that we're only using renewable fuels behind that sort of thing. So it is only renewable based products that are going in to produce the biomethane. So we're not looking at getting products from a farming industry that should be going into food crops, for example. What we're looking at doing is sort of rectifying and using renewable fuels, obviously from sort of food waste.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. And one thing I wondered was whether there was because it's been kind of, the gas has been injected into the national gas network. Mm-hmm. Is there a potential for kind of double counting, that you're counting it and maybe the gas company's counting it as a carbon reduction as well? Is there link up between you and the company that, I suppose it's been Cadent, is it, that it's put into? But
yeah, I mean, the way in which it works is obviously done through the sort of Department for Transport sort of auditing process anyway, sort of thing. So we can't physically sell more than what we actually buy, sort of thing. So we'd agree with a user how much gas or how many vehicles they're running and what that volume of fuel equates to. Then obviously we'll then go and secure that volume behind it. So physically, under the mass balance process, we can't sell any more gas than we're physically allowed to. And there's obviously an audit process behind the scenes as well that we go through.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And then there's a question from Rebecca. I think, this is about the EV charging. So it's for you, Chris. What is the potential for community-owned energy and EV charging? I know that when FITs existed, community groups could fit solar panels to village hall roofs. Will this kind of model work again in the future?
Yes, for definite. We're part of multiple trials at the moment with virtual power plants, as it's referred to, so VPP, being able to see if you can do a share of energy from renewable energy sources, battery storage, etc., to be able to support the stress on the national grid through charging infrastructure. It's a little bit in its infancy, and it's a test process at the moment, but we've been involved in it for probably about 2.5 years, and we're seeing some really, really strong results from it. So I think you'll probably see a bit more mainstream articles coming from it within the next 12 months, really, with all of the study.
No, that's really interesting, Chris. And I think as a council, we'd be keen to talk to you about that, because I mentioned our Community Renewal Fund bid that we've got in, which is called Green Lincolnshire. And we're kind of hopeful that we'll get the funding for that. And one of the projects is for Zero Carbon Parishes project, to work with local communities to try and kind of reduce carbon emissions at a parish level. So the kind of, what we're talking about, kind of linking up to village halls, and that often have, large car parks as well, then that could be an opportunity to install charging points at those locations.
Absolutely, we'd love to be part of that with you.
Excellent. So I'll get in touch if and when we get the funding. We'll probably do it anyway through our Green Master Plan budget. I think one final question that I had on the Zedify scheme for you, Rob, is about the size of location. So obviously we've got Lincoln as the largest urban area within the county council zone, but is it something kind of the kind of medium-sized towns, the sort of Boston, Grantham, that are kind of mid 40,000 population, probably a bit more when you include the surrounding villages as well? Is it that the sort of scale that you would be looking at for cargo bike schemes?
We certainly haven't proven the model in the way that we're doing it now with those sort of size towns. They are quite small, so you do need a minimum size viability to cover the to fully make it sustainable, to cover the cost of the hubs, to make that work. So I think there may be some new models that come up in the future that enable that in a slightly different way, where it's perhaps it's more of a regional hub that's serving a number of those small places, and or even what seems to be coming out quite a lot now is mobile distribution hub stuff. So actually using like a truck that isn't fixed, that just comes into a city from outside and sits there, and the cargo bikes come off that. So there's some interesting technologies coming up to make it work for smaller cities and alternatives.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I thought maybe Grantham might be a possibility, just because of it's kind of like an important logistics centre anyway. So because it's on the A1 and it's
Sure.
got a lot of transport businesses there. So
yeah. Great.
So that's great. Well, I think we kind of I'll just check the questions again whether there be any more. I think we've kind of exhausted all the questions that have come through. So so it just leaves for me to thank all our speakers today. I think that's been really useful. We kind of looked at the kind of delivery side of things, the HTV side of things, and the EV home charging side of things as well. So I think we've covered all the kind of main areas of the kind of surface transport and reducing those emissions, which I said, it's around about 40% of Lincolnshire's carbon emissions is from surface transport. So there's a lot of things to go at. And as Rob said in his presentation, the emissions have kind of been flat over the last 30 years. They've kind of been fairly constant. So so there's a lot to go at in this sector. So thanks once again to all of our speakers. And then we've got two more webinars as part of this series tomorrow at 6:30, and then again on Thursday as well. So if you've already registered, I think the same link gets you through to those webinars as well. So thanks very much for attending, and thanks very much to our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers all. Bye now.